Well,
Hmm.
first of
Yeah.
all, let me commend Jay Lane on his fashion choice tonight, a t shirt that says Owsley on it. And based on how beautifully Jay is playing, I'll have what he's having.
Did you notice that Mickey is also wearing it? His says Owsley High alum.
Lovely. I didn't see Mickey's
I
actually, but
I wonder what's going on up there. Uh,
it isn't
huh.
Bear's birthday, is
Well,
it, or anything? I was thinking.
I don't think so. Yesterday was David Nelson's birthday,
True.
which
Well,
has
anyway.
nothing to do with Owsley. But yeah, so another damn fine show half over here. We've
Hmm.
run out of superlatives. We're just going to have to just slog through the rest of the tour with the same goddamn language every time. It's just unbelievably good.
That's right. And
I put
go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
Well,
Well,
I
just
put check marks next to the extra coolest stuff.
okay, good, as you are wont to do, my friend. And better than us telling you, giving you the superlatives, we're going to tell you in a moment uh, that you should avail yourself of this yourself, and then you can make up your own superlatives, which may be even better than ours. But David, first we'll recap the set, and then we'll tell you about nugs.net.
Well, and I guess we have a lag of about a second here, so I'm going to be more
Oh,
careful in our interactions going forward. We heard tonight the music never stopped. Next time you see me, me and my uncle, Road Jimmy, Dear Mr. Fantasy, Hey Jude, Cassidy, and Iko Iko all in one fabulous sort of three-course meal and a medley there. Just everything's so well done. I really was thinking about next time you see me, and I think that John Mayer uh his the time that he spent working in the blues domain has really informed his playing here to a brilliant degree, and I think he also his vocal today on Next Time You See Me sounds lends owes as much to Junior Parker as it does to Pigpen.
yeah, very much so. So yeah, just another stellar set out of how many shows have there been, and then just multiply that by the stellar sets, uh,
I
minus
was
one
thinking
set
we're
because we've got a second one coming.
right, and we're not quite halfway there yet. This just keeps unfolding in front of us, and I keep thinking, it's just can't. The level of engagement and performance and inspiration and novelty and comfort and all of the things we want from this tour are pretty damn high all the way through, I have to say.
Yeah. And by the way, if you are watching this on YouTube right now, that means you are watching the second set preview, the free second set preview. Uh, Nugs on their YouTube channel and also on Den Company's social channels offer a free preview of each set of each show. You get the first song, and sometimes if it's two songs cludged together, they'll give you that second song as well if they're feeling extra generous. And it is to entice you to look into this further because if you only hear the first song of a set, you're bound to say, but, but, but I want to hear more. And you can because these entire shows, hello,
I'm here.
no anchovies. Anyway, I just want to let you know that Nugs is presenting every show of this tour in full, in beautiful HD or 4K video. And after the fact, you can download the audio of shows or stream them if you are a subscriber to Nugs. Uh, so many ways to enjoy this music, but watching the full shows with the fantastic camera work, the stunning visuals, the incredible audio. Um, that's the way to go, folks. Unless you're there in person, and then you're shoulder to shoulder with everybody. But we know that not everyone can do that on this tour, so we have this incredible luxury most of the time. I ran away to Chicago for the weekend, but I'm back in front of my backdrop, which a viewer said makes Gary look like a peacock. But anyway,
It does, kind of.
it kind of does. Well, I hope I don't get sued by NBC. But anyway, we can offer you this incredible service that Nugs.net provides, not just for Dead and Company. It goes back well into the history of the Grateful Dead and its various spin-offs and children, musical children, as well as exemplars of the whole jam band scene. They have Fish, they have Humphreys McGee, they have Goose, they have the youngsters, they have the veterans. Fish has been around for going on 40 years now, so now they're old timers as well. But new bands keep coming up, and you can check them out on nugs.net. And you can also go back to artists who are not in the same genre but are great enduring artists like Bruce Springsteen or Wilco or who else do they have, David? They've got so many great people. We should have the whole list in front of us.
Yes, we found out recently the Yes library is in there. But
Right.
the thing about Nugs that distinguishes it from the other streaming services is that it's oriented around live music. This is not like all of those ones that are mostly organized around albums and studio recordings or whatever, the official output of bands. This was started by Deadheads, facilitating the trading of tapes and the distribution of music among people who love it. And they turned it into a really, really thriving business that has done just tremendous work. And I remember I was sort of tangentially involved in one of the very first live streaming things that Nugs ever did, which was a little over 25 years ago now, if I'm counting correctly. So we've been watching and enjoying the valuable contributions of Nugs to our live music culture for quite a while now. And so I'm really, obviously, Gary and I are happy to be working for Nugs right here, schmoozing with some of our favorite people for your amusement. So I don't feel at all bad about telling you that Nugs is a great value for your dollar, and they do just ridiculously good work. I download every one of these Dead and Company shows for my my radio show library, and the quality of the remixes that they do for download is spectacular.
Yeah. And you can have it within a day or so of the show. It's kind of miraculous. This is the kind of thing we all dreamed of. Back when the Grateful Dead had crazy ideas about having big trucks with cassette recorders in them in the parking lot, those were kind of quixotic dreams, but the technology now allows this, and Nugs has taken that technology and put it to incredible use for all these years now. And with high speed internet and all that stuff, it's all so possible, and it's more possible on Nugs than anywhere else. As David said, it is really the killer app for live music.
Hell yes. We should stop talking about that though and introduce our recorded segment, because these prompt fellers here might take a short break and then we would miss hearing the entire interview.
That's right. So it's someone who has written a fantastic book. He's an author of several excellent books. One about Stevie Ray Vaughan, and a new one that's about to come out about a band that were very much and remain very much kindred spirits of the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers Band. And this is an especially apt year for it because
Yeah.
two of the most significant comings together of the Dead and the Allman Brothers happened 50 years ago in 1973. Watkins
And not
Glen
only
and
that, not only that, Dead and Company has a former member of the Allman Brothers Band right there on stage.
that's right. There's a lot of crossover, and of course we've had in the past we've had Warren play with these guys. There's so much intertwined history. So Alan Paul, the guy we're about to talk to, is your go-to expert on that. So why don't we go to that interview? As we always mention, we won't be back after the break. We're just going to throw it right back to the stage so the band can get back to its job. We'll be back on Thursday from Philadelphia. I'll be here. I decided not to go to Philadelphia. Too much wear and tear on these old bones, but happy to be here in front of my peacock. And thanks to everybody. Thanks to Lonnie and Johnny who are running the show here. And let's go to Alan Paul. Good night, everybody.
We are happy to have Alan Paul with us today. He is the author of a new biography of the Allman Brothers called Brothers and Sisters that's coming out very soon. And it's a wonderful book. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Well, Alan, sorry.
No, there's a long history of collaboration and friendship between the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead. And in fact, there's an ambassador from the Allman Brothers Band is currently with Dead and Company, the wonderful Oteil Burbridge. So it's very appropriate to have you with us. And also, having read your book, sent me off into the archive to listen to that amazing concert the Dead played in Piedmont Park in July of 1969. So there's a lot of overlap here. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and that's a good point about O'Teal. I mean, he's in a unique position now. He's one guy who's logged significant time with both bands, or as close as it could be to both bands. And yeah, I felt that the relationship between the two bands was oddly a little bit underexplored, and something that came up in conversations so often because, of course, there's so much overlap in fan base, myself included, and just so many people included. There's, of course, people might lean one way or the other as to who their favorite is, but rare is the Allman Brothers fan who dismisses the Dead, and vice versa, as far as I can tell. And those that do, I don't really understand. I find that completely puzzling. That makes absolutely no sense to me. But I know Deadheads who don't like Dylan either, so I don't get that. But again, everybody has their own taste. But to me, it's such a natural affinity and relationship, and certainly to the musicians, it always was. And that was just something I really wanted to explore and dig into.
Yeah, well, the affinities between the musicians have remained consistent in many, many collaborations. Of course, two Allman Brothers alumni were at the core of one of the most popular and long-running Phil Lesh and Friends incarnations, Warren and Jimmy Herring. Um, and as David said, O'Teal is with us now. There's been a lot of interaction with Derek Trucks. Uh, and the most recent Phil and Friends show that I saw, which was at the Skull and Roses Festival, Dwayne Betts was on guitar. And during the course of the two nights Phil played, they covered Jessica in memory of Elizabeth Reed
Blue Sky.
and Blue Sky. And it was really something to see the son of Dickie Betts and the son of Phil Lesh playing those, two twin guitar leads. It just
Yes,
shows.
absolutely. And I've known Dwayne since he was, a kid on the side of the stage at the Allman Brothers shows, and I've known Phil and Brian Lesh since they were backstage, little towhead kids playing catch at Phil and Friends shows, and whatnot. So on a personal level, that's delightful to me, and musically, yes, it was fantastic. I was so excited to see that, and this fall, an O'Teal and Friends shows that his band is going to feature Dwayne Betts as well as Lamar Williams Jr., who's played frequently with O'Teal. So
Yeah, we heard Lamar singing in Ventura at Skull and Roses. Lovely.
yeah, and that, I think that's important to note with Lamar, Dwayne, and Graham. They're all great musicians. I mean, none of them are there because of their name. Their name and their lineage, of course, gives them extra resonance and power. But nobody will go see those guys and think that they're getting a scholarship, so to speak. They're all there because they're great. They're fully dedicated to the music and to their father's legacies. And I'm doing some book release shows. Like you, David. I also play this music that I write about and
Good.
talk about. And I'm doing some shows with Dwayne and Lamar, which I'm also really excited about.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you to talk about yourself a little bit and how you came to be basically the official biographer of the Allman Brothers. So give us a little background on how you got where you
Well,
are.
it's a long and twisty road. I started in terms of writing about the Allman Brothers. I started as a regular journalist. The first piece I did was for Tower Pulse magazine. Some people will remember it was the
I do.
magazine in Tower. Was very important to me in my career. Really got me going. And I profiled the band when they when Seven Turns came out in 1990, their first comeback. It was a really important article for me. I interviewed Dickie and Greg and Tom Dowd and Phil Walden and Warren and Warren Haynes, who were new members of the band then. And that story came out so well, it really led to me getting hired at Guitar World in 1991. And then I was there as the Allman Brothers were starting to be at the Beacon all the time. I had just moved to New York and started seeing them. I developed a friendship, first a working relationship, I guess you'd say, and then a friendship with Kirk West, who was the band's he wore many hats. He was sort of, to put it in dead terms, he was sort of Steve Parrish and Dick Latvala and I don't know, I guess latter day Jay Blakesberg rolled into one because he's the photographer and the archivist and the road manager. We became good friends, and then I started being around backstage, and that it was really those things. And during all that, I just kept writing about the band, and like the Dead, I would say that the Allman Brothers have a certain level of wariness of the press. And so spending a lot of time being backstage and talking to the crew members and being there hours before the shows and things without necessarily writing about it made a big difference when time came around to do the interviews. Sometimes I would think, I don't even know if Greg knows who I am. He was famous for not remembering like the front of house sound guy's name after they worked for him for years. That was sort of Greg, but he definitely knew me as someone that he knew and that he trusted and that he saw around all the time. Eventually, he did know my name, but um, that kind of stuff just happened. You can't really set out to be the official person. It just has to kind of happen.
No, I know that I've had that experience too. There's one particular musician that I dealt with repeatedly over the years who once in a while I could see him sort of reminding himself that he likes me now.
Yeah. Yeah. Familiar faces are welcome, even if they're not always sure exactly why.
Yeah.
Yeah. David and I, and you, I'm sure we all had that common experience of getting to the fringes of a band's inner circle and having people say, "Who's that guy?" And then
Yeah.
there's a certain little pivot where it becomes, "Oh yeah, that guy."
Yeah.
And you breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, my relationship with Warren and Jimmy Herring actually brought me into, more kinship and relationship with the Grateful Dead world through those Phil Lesh quintet shows, which, I think I should say were some of the greatest shows I've ever seen. I mean, not just Dead related shows. I would just, to me, they're some of my very, very favorite, most precious memories, a handful of them in particular, but every show was fantastic and I saw a lot of them.
Yeah, well, for Allman fans, Allman and Dead fans, who have that commonality, that band was the perfect storm because you had that two guitar attack so particular to the ABB, and it was being applied to Grateful Dead material, and it was like I said, just what could be better for a fan of both.
Despite their long friendship and relationship and connection to the Allman Brothers Band, Jimmy and Warren never played together in the Allman Brothers Band.
That's right.
And so their actual musical relationship, not their friendship or personal relationship, but musical relationship really was founded in that Phil and Friends.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
And I think the first show of that incarnation of Phil and Friends was at a memorial for Alan Woody. So that was right around the time O'Teal came into the band.
That was an incredible show. I was there. I'm not sure if it was the first one or not, but that doesn't feel quite right to me. But it was certainly an important one, and maybe it was. We'd have to look that up. But that was an incredible show. That was the one time actually that Jimmy and Warren played together in the Allman Brothers Band.
Right.
Because Derek had some other commitment at that point. He couldn't be there, and so. Yeah, Jimmy and Warren did play.
The title of the book is Brothers and Sisters, and it's a detailed and very musical, thank you, biography of the Allman Brothers Band. And I'm not surprised that you reveal that you're a musician. And I think it's important that musicians be part of telling these stories because there's so much other stuff, like, it could be all about the gossipy bullshit and stuff, but I like the fact that it's the musical thread that ties the story together, and the rest of the stuff has to be handled in sort of a delicate manner, I know, but yeah. I appreciate the musicality of your narrative.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. It's a fine line because I don't want to write just for musicians, but I want to write about the music, putting the music first. And I don't think you have to be a musician to do that. I mean, I spent a lot of time with Cameron Crowe's writing, for instance, in researching this book, because he wrote famously the cover story in 1973, Rolling Stone, that became the basis of Almost Famous, not the story per se, but his experiences with the band then. But he also wrote about them and the Grateful Dead. He did a great interview with Jerry Garcia. I believe it was in Circus magazine of all places. But he did a lot of writing for Circus, for Guitar World. I'm sorry, for Rolling Stone. I wrote for Guitar World, not Cameron. But one of the things that struck me about his stories, even when he was 16 and 17, is that he did center the music over everything else. He was more interested in the music than the sex and drugs, or the rock and roll, rather than the sex and drugs, which I think is one of the reasons that I always liked his writing. It was a fascinating time for the band. As I started to dig into that history, I realized that it was about so much more than the album, that I actually wanted to change the title. But my editor loved the title, and the Brothers and Sisters as an album title expressed a lot about their lifestyle, and we ultimately felt it did the same for my book. It's not just about the album, but they were in the middle of so much during that period, including these huge shows with the Grateful Dead that we're talking about, and that included, of course, Watkins Glen. It's about the 50th anniversary of that is coming up, so the book is coming out in time for that, and I really dived into Watkins Glen. I have 2 extensive chapters, and it was a lot of fun to write about. I have to admit that although a lot of people keep telling me how much they wish they were there, that is not my feeling when I learn about Watkins Glen. I would love to be there if I was on the side of the stage or something, but boy, being in the crowd sounds rough to me.
I was there, and I can confirm that your desire not to be there was fully justified. I left very early in the proceedings.
Yeah. Did you have the great experience with the sound checks? Were you there
No,
for that?
no, I didn't get.
Yeah.
I got there basically just in time for the Dead set, and got fed up pretty quickly. But yeah, we are always celebrating the 50th anniversary of something these days because so many great things happened in the early 70s. In addition to Watkins Glen, the RFK Stadium show, the Grateful Dead's portion of which is enshrined in this wonderful new box set called Here Comes Sunshine, was also a massive and artistically triumphant show. And
Yeah.
you also think about this coming on the heels of something that would be unendurable for any other band. Dwayne dying in the fall of 1971, and Barry Oakley almost in an almost identical fashion a year later. And the resilience of the Allman Brothers, the musical excellence aside, their resilience and their coming through crises, and and Greg's struggles and everything is one of the more remarkable parts of the story.
Yeah, that's right. And people always ask, well, how did they do it? And I do really go into that in depth in the book, but the more existential answer to that is they just did it. There is no blueprint for that. I mean, they would have all folded up and sort of shriveled away if they hadn't done it. That's really the answer, in short, is that they had to do it. Obviously, they found the right musicians. In Chuck Leavell, which was, a brilliant concept to add this incredible piano player that they more or less stumbled upon. They didn't go looking for him. He was just there. He was around. He was incredible. And so it gave them the answer of how to replace this instrumental brilliance of Dwayne without replacing a guitarist, because that would have been unthinkable to them for any other guitarist to walk on that stage at that time. And then Lamar Williams, this incredible bass player that was essentially unknown, who came out of nowhere. There were some bigger name people trying out, but he was a good friend from growing up in Gulfport, Mississippi with JMO, and JMO just sort of said, "Oh, I got the guy," and he did. So it is incredible, and resilience is a word you used. I think that's a great word. I think it's an underrated trait that we all can use a lot of, and certainly the Dead have exhibited that as well in different and also similar ways. I mean, here we are talking about it at the Dead and Co. This didn't seem like something that could ever happen, and it's happened, and it's made a lot of people happy.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, we're starting to run out of time here, so it might be a good time to end this then, since we hit a natural pause in the conversation. I very much appreciate your work, and I thank you for spending some time with us today. The book again is called Brothers and Sisters, and tell me the pub date again.
July 25th.
Right.
All right.
And
Yeah,
thank you so much.
I appreciate your guys' work, and it's all about the music, and I feel honored to be a part of sharing that with so many people. So I'm sure you guys do as well.